Let's take, so our final item is an ICAO flash talk on a crucial aspect of aviation security. We're moving on to the... So that's digital trust and cyber resilience in civil aviation. EUROCAE and RTCA have a strong partnership with ICAO, collaborating on numerous initiatives aimed at enhancing global aviation safety and security. This relationship is particularly important as we address the emerging challenges of cybersecurity and digital trust, areas where ICAO plays a pivotal role. I'm very pleased to introduce a speaker, Michael Goodfellow, Technical Officer in the Air Navigation Bureau of ICAO, where he works on cyber safety and resilience. Michael is responsible for coordinating safety-related cyber activities across various expert groups. He also serves as the secretary to ICAO's Trust Framework Panel, which is dedicated to developing policies, procedures, and requirements for digital trust interoperability in civil aviation. So let's welcome Michael Goodfellow.
Thank you, Anna. And thank you, Anna. Good day to everyone, wherever you might be around the world. And thank you to both RTCA and EUROCAE for the opportunity to speak with everyone today. Before I begin, I just do want to give a quick highlight that what I'll be sharing with you today would not be possible without the active involvement of a lot of experts that have also been deeply contributing to the work of both Working Group 72 and SE 216, and as well as other ICAO expert groups. So my thanks to everyone, and it's just a demonstration of the close collaboration that's ongoing and that we need to make this a successful endeavor. So a quick update on ICAO Trust Framework activities. So effectively, the first question we normally get asked at ICAO is getting involved in cyber aspects and getting involved in building digital trust is, why is ICAO actually doing this? Because this is not normally something ICAO would normally get involved in. And we did identify very early on that if you want to look at the aviation ecosystem, and there's should be really no surprise within the contents of the diagram on the right-hand side, but there is a digital transformation ongoing. And we had a question during the last session of where do we draw the line on this connectivity as we go through this digital evolution? And I don't think there will be a line, pragmatically speaking. But as we continue to connect things more and more together, systems and people are going to be fundamentally affected. And this transformation is not going to be just siloed. It will be felt across multiple areas. So we need to account for this, and how do we plan going forward? So this has already been talked about by other panelists, but we do identify new entrants, diverse needs, and global challenges. We have low and slow, we have fast and high, we have UAVs and drones in various capacities, we have RPAS, we have how do we integrate all this into unmanned traffic management. And these are questions that need to be addressed, and these are what ICAO is working on at the global level. So one of the things that we did kind of identify early on is that there was a lot of work that was being done. This digital transformation, if you want to call it that, is already happening, but it's happening in all the little corners, so to speak. So everyone is taking care of their own little part of their world, if I can use that term. But this is leading to some problems. And they're securing their own systems and information exchanges, but the problem is they're doing it for their own purposes, and they're not necessarily keeping the idea in mind of how do we maintain this interoperability going forward. So what we thought of doing at ICAO is to come up with this theme of convergence, as we called it, which is we need to maintain interoperability. And interoperability, we have the word that gets thrown around quite a bit, which is single sky. Well, we want to build a digital single sky, and that interoperability does require some global collaboration. We need to all find out what we can unite on as far as needs go. We need to address common solutions, not necessarily building things, but at least agree on what the direction forward is. And ultimately, as I said, agree on that one common destination where we have a single interoperable digital sky, just like we have right now for operational purposes. So just to give a brief kind of history of ICAO's trust journey, as we call it, in reality, this chart goes back to 2008 when the communications panel of ICAO first started addressing cybersecurity issues for the air-ground comms domain. But really, from a pragmatic standpoint, it kicked off in ICAO in 2015, where we had our first meeting of what we colloquially called the Cyber Friends Group. This resulted in a second meeting. What we ended up with was a global air navigation industry symposium in 2017, where we asked the industry, okay, is building digital trust something ICAO should be work on? The answer was a resounding yes. This followed up at the 13th Air Navigation Conference back in 2018, where we got a recommendation to go forward. In 2019, we had the 40th Assembly, and we had the establishment of a study group to work on the trust framework aspects. We had a first meeting of this group in 2020. In 2022, the study group was transformed into a full panel, which the first meeting was in 23. And finally, earlier this year, we had the second meeting, of the trust framework panel, and we will be delivering our first sets of guidance material on information security very, very soon. So getting into the actual meat of it, which is the trust framework. So I guess the first question is, what's a trust framework? So the way that we actually describe it is a set of policies, procedures, and requirements so organizations can share digital information and retain the confidence that what is shared is authentic and altered and sufficiently protected. And getting into the information discussions I've had so far today, I want to underline that term sufficiently protected, because we always want to maintain that balance between safety and what's required for information security. So it fundamentally boils down to a basic question. Can you trust these things? If we give you an electronic personnel license, can you trust it? If we give you a data link message, can you trust it? If we give you a chart in a digital format, do you know that's authentic? It gets back to the question that Mike Van Guardia raised in the previous panel of, do we trust the data that we're being provided? And that's one of the key challenges we're trying to address. So we have a quick example here. And this, again, is all notional. But an aircraft would receive a message. That message would then get essentially validated through a process. And then, of course, it would be displayed to the crew. But what's a little bit different than some of the things that we normally do with IT security is that we have to think of the operational paradigm here of actual safety. So normally, if you're redirected to a website that has a bad certificate right now, you'll just get a big error page on whatever browser you use, say, don't go there. We can't allow this for safety. We just basically have to flag a message that said, yeah, this message is not validated, so please act accordingly. And again, that's the processes and extra loops that we have to build in for safety, because we're operating in a slightly different domain than pure information security in an IT aspect. So for our cases for digital trust, we've identified a number of use cases. I'm not going to go through all of these, but essentially, these are operational use cases that the panel that's been assigned this work, the Trust Framework panel, is beginning to look at. 3 ones have been identified as high priority, or first off the gate, if you will. So that's data comms, flight plan management, and license management. So those we're actually working on. We have a meeting coming up in a few weeks where we'll be tackling those topics head on. So how can we make this happen? So in the last couple of minutes, I just want to go into some of the actual practicalities of what the panel has done so far and the direction that we want to go in. So recognizing the fact that if we want to make trust in a digital environment globally applicable and usable and actually implementable, this can't be a monolithic solution. We cannot build a huge trust framework that everyone will somehow join and work on. It's just not feasible. So the model that we've basically settled on is a federated implementation model, or what we call trust framework instances. These are going to be, in many ways, community of interest and operations specific, and they will be self-governing based on the requirements, based on the documentation produced by ICAO. So we have a couple of foundations of this digital trust. We have some baselines, and anybody that's been involved in digital trust, there should be no surprise whatsoever. We have identity management. We also have information security. And we also have been addressing the challenges sometimes that Adam was talking about in his panel as well, of how do we link this concept of safety risk management with information security risk management, and that's part of what I'll be talking about shortly. And we're also producing implementation guidance, which is basically how to do this. And most importantly, because trust is a demonstrated quality that has to be repeatable and accessible, how do we assess it? So we have three high-level functions that we define for each trust framework instance. So there's a governance, which is basically how will that particular instance govern itself? What does everyone agree to? And what are the rules of the road, as we say? How will they validate the trust between themselves from a technical standpoint? And how will participants be managed both on an onboarding and offboarding process? Because we have to realize that not everyone will be part of a trust framework forever. So we have some key deliverables. We have what we call the interoperability baseline. So we have a common reference certificate policy to tackle identity management. This is on the integrity side of the CIA triad. And we have our manual information security. This is basically a interoperability document. And the idea is that those wishing to participate in a TFI would map their information security controls in their existing ISMS to this as a baseline, so that it can kind of act as a common reference, so everyone can point to the same thing. Because ISMSs are great, but they, generally speaking, apply internally to the organization, and we needed something that can actually be mapped to across organizations. And of course, the thing that we're working on currently is the Trust Framework Manual, which is the how-to guidance. This work has only just started, but we'll be advancing it over the next several months. So if you look at this at a glance, kind of how this looks notionally speaking, ICAO is producing the guidance or the documentation. And I should point out this is all guidance. None of this is going to be SARPs because there are already existing SARPs in all the annexes that we can actually leverage to take it from there. So we have the Trust Framework Manual, which again is the implementation for the common certificate policy and the information security stuff. And then within the actual trust framework instance itself, we have the three functions, which is governance, validation, and participation. And then, of course, we feed back to make sure we have the constant feedback loop. So going forward, and this is the comment from the previous panel, we want to make sure that we don't just deliver a set of documentation and then find out after the fact that we have problems with it. So in the interest of testing beforehand, what we really have been working on is making sure that we actually do some technical trials with this material to make sure that it does work and that we can fix mistakes beforehand. So we had some initial trials between FAA and Eurocontrol. Those were very promising. And we have some much more ambitious upcoming trials between FAA, Eurocontrol, and UK NATS for exchange of flight plans in basically in a heterogeneous environment to make sure that what the guidance material that we're producing is actually on point. So with that, I thank you very much. And I believe I've hit my time. So Anna, or Rebecca, sorry, I'll hand it back to you.
No, you hit your time perfectly, Michael. I would like to thank Michael Goodfellow for this great explanation of the trust framework and the work that you're doing at ICAO. We really appreciate our relationship with ICAO, both as secretariats and our members, making sure we're building that framework together. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We saved the best for last, Michael, and this is the conclusion of our summit today. So first, I would like to say thank you very much to everyone who is here and has made it all the way through the summit today. I hope you found it as enjoyable and as educational as I have. You will be able to find the recordings of this event and the on-demand sessions on EUROCAE and RTCA's YouTube channel. And before we move off that, just to summarize some of what we've heard today, there's a lot. There were 3 different panels, all addressing different technologies, but there were some very common themes that we heard from all 12 of our panelists. The importance of sharing information among aviation stakeholders to be sure that we are all aware of the attacks that are coming, but the need to constantly monitor and pivot during that monitoring to be aware of new threats as the threat environment changes. The threats will always continue to evolve, And then, especially in our last panel, we heard about the need to be able to speed up the innovation and implementation in aviation. All of these are important topics. We also heard from EASA, ICAO, and the FAA about how the regulators are addressing security in the regulatory environment, again, touching on regulating for safety. So thank you so much to everyone who's contributed today. I also need to give a big shout out to NATCA, who once again sponsored this webinar and many of our webinar and event series at RTCA, but we appreciate them sponsoring our summit today with EUROCAE to be sure that we were able to provide this for you. And we also want to be sure to thank not just for the content, but all of our individual speakers today, the flash talks and the panelists. We can't do that without you. And then a final thank you goes out to everyone who's attended today. If you didn't get to see the whole thing, we do hope that you will see our on-demand sessions and the recordings on our YouTube channels or in the event lobby. Anna, what are your thoughts today on what we've heard?
Thank you, Rebecca. And thanks everyone who attended and who participated to the summit. EUROCAE and RTCA stand ready to support aviation security and safety through standardization. And our robust process are here to facilitate the development of standards to meet the challenges of the future. This may bring me to a call to action. We encourage all of you to actively participate in the working group and special committees. The discussion we had today are essential. And we need as many voices as possible contributing to their expertise to shape the future of aviation. So that's really important. Rebecca?
So I so agree with you. And when we do this joint work on security with EUROCAE, we do have public plenaries. So we would love to have anyone on the phone become a member and participate in the creating of standards, but you are also welcome to attend the public plenaries to see how the standards are developing and how the new standards will be used by EASA, ICAO, and the FAA, and all of the regulators worldwide in the future as they're being developed. We can't write these standards without you, and standards are an enabler that make security repeatable and implementable across aviation, but they're the first step, and we can't write them without all of you.
So I may say to conclude, collaboration is key. Collaboration among stakeholders, amongst our members from all areas of the world, and collaboration between EUROCAE and RTCA. So once again, thank you all for attending today's event. We hope to see you soon and continue this important work together. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Have a good night, everyone.